So I'm going to start off with an introduction to myself. My name is Rachel and my pronouns are she and her. And so I'm a proud University of Alberta alumni, and now I'm also a student recruiter for the College of Natural and Applied Science, which includes engineering, and that's where most of my work lies. So we want to welcome you to our event today, which is Engineering for Impact Student Stories. Today, we're going to hear from 4 different current engineering students about their programs, projects they've worked on, some hobbies, as well as how they're making an impact in their communities. So the students are going to introduce themselves each, and then we'll have a student panel. If you have questions, the feature we're using in this webinar is the Q&A box. So the chat is disabled, so any questions you have, you can toss in the Q&A, and we'll be addressing them in the student panel. It can be questions as broad as, how do I study for engineering, to why did you pick that part of engineering, or even asking about a hobby, if that piques your interest when the students are talking. If you have admissions questions for engineering as well, I can answer those, so feel free to toss those in the Q&A as well. But before we get started, I just want to start with a land acknowledgement. So today I'm presenting to you from Edmonton, Alberta, home to the University of Alberta. The University of Alberta acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community, both on campus and in the Edmonton community and beyond. At the University of Alberta, we like to say that engineering is turning thinking into doing. And we'll see how the students have a take on that in their openings. Also, hi, Alex. Well, when we get to you, we'll see if your audio works, but thanks for joining us. So on this slide, the UA likes to say that engineering is turning thinking into doing, meaning that really anything is possible within the field of engineering. And I think the students today cover off a huge diversity of engineering and aspects and projects and co-ops that you can get involved in. So I'm going to start by passing it off to our first student, Paulina, to tell them a bit about ourselves. So go ahead, Paulina.
Hi everyone, I'm Paulina. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 4th year environmental engineering co-op student here at the U of A. We can go to the next slide. Awesome. So a really fun fact about me is that I was actually born in Germany, but I grew up in Peace River, Alberta, which is 5 hours north from Edmonton. I chose the U of A because of the location. I realistically wanted to be able to see my family. I wanted to stay in Alberta. So I applied to only 2 schools and U of A was one of them. It was my top choice. So I chose engineering because I was really interested in environmental application, specifically mathematical and science application to the environment. So I went into first year knowing I wanted environmental. So that's a little different from everyone else. And it's totally okay if you don't know what kind of engineering you want to be when you enter. So in school, I'm a Students' Union Engineering Counselor. So the Students' Union is the group of students that advocate for you to the university. So every single faculty has a handful of students who represent you. I am one of those students. And as well, I'm a counselor for the General Facilities Council. And this is similar to the other one, except it is just now on a university level. And then within engineering, we do have an engineering student society. This is a group of students who are in charge of you, and they advocate for you to the faculty, and they plan really cool events for you. And I'm the chair of the board of directors, which again is like council, but on the engineering side of things. I like to consider myself a professional hobby hopper. I try a lot of hobbies every year. I'm trying a new extreme sport. This year I picked up snowboarding, and last year I picked up rock climbing, so super fun. And then for co-ops, this is not a co-op, but I added it in anyway. But I worked for Discovery Summer Camps, which was so fun. And if you're unaware of what that is, Discovery is a program that provides math engineering camps to school-age children. So it's really cool to get to share that with the younger kids. And then this past co-op term, I worked for the city of Edmonton for development services, and this was more of a civil engineering position. So I drafted contracts for land use and stuff like that. So it was really, really fun. Next slide, please. And here are just some fun photos of me and my degree. So there's two pictures of my labs. This is I call it the wastewater class because we learn a lot about wastewater and environmental, but really it's the physical and chemical processes lab. So we get to do some really cool water stuff. So the picture closest to the left is of my friend Daniel standing next to like a massive column filled with water. And then the picture in the middle is actually the same lab, but that's a process of removing liquid from something. And then there's just a photo of me studying. You're going to have a lot of those as an engineering student. And then there's rock climbing, and then I tried ice climbing this year as well. And then top right is a picture of Battle of the Bands, which is an event the Engineering Student Society puts on. When you start going here, I highly recommend you go to it. It is so fun. Every single discipline puts on a set, they compete, they show off. It is just the most fun experience ever. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalina. I loved your photos. I'm also learning to snowboard, so maybe later we can collaborate on tips because it's a little rough out there. Awesome. I'm next going to pass it off to Alex to introduce themselves. Go ahead, Alex.
Awesome. Can you hear me all right? Perfect. Okay. Apologies, having a little bit of technical difficulties, but yes, I'm Alex. I'm a fourth year civil environmental engineering student, also in the co-op program, so very similar to Polina's program. And we can head to the next slide. Yeah, so originally I'm from Calgary, Alberta, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump south of Edmonton. I really came to the University of Alberta for a few reasons. First of all, it was a really convenient distance from home. It wasn't too far, but it also wasn't too close, which was important to get some of that independence as well. As well, of course, for the academics, as you probably know, as you've applied, the University of Alberta is one of the best engineering programs in the country, and apparently it is the biggest as well. I found out from the Dean of Students, which is fantastic. The co-op program is incredible. I highly, highly recommend it. So when you are choosing your disciplines, take that into consideration. Please try the co-op program. It is another one of the reasons why I chose to come here. Instead of other schools where they only have 12 or 16 months, this is 20 whole months, and it's broken up into different opportunities. So personally, I'm almost done my 5 co-op terms. So again, those four months per semester times 5 semesters, those 20 months, and I've worked in 4 different jobs. So outside of engineering, I am part of the University of Alberta Ambassadors, which is a group that leads tours around campus. So if you would like to come on a tour around campus, sign up anytime. I have to do a little plug for that. Rachel was also a University of Alberta Ambassador. That's where I met her. So really great connections as well. Some of my favorite classes that I've taken. One of my favorite was Math 201. I really, really enjoyed it. It was with a fantastic professor named Eric Wilgar, and he inspired me to take a minor in math. So I'll be finishing that at the end of my degree as well. I also really enjoyed Civil 395. That was a really great class to learn about some modeling techniques and some things that I used in previous co-ops, as well as the one that I'm doing right now, which I'll chat a little bit more about. And Environmental Engineering 326 was another great one. It was all about environmental site assessments. So that's looking at the sites after things have been placed on them. So after development's happened and you want to redevelop the land, that sort of thing, or before you develop land, how the land is looking. So for my co-op experiences, my first one was 8 months, so it was 2 co-op semesters. It was in the mobility unit at the City of Edmonton. I really enjoyed that. And then I did some materials testing at the University of Alberta. Currently, I'm working at the Innovation Centre for Transport Canada, where I'm doing some rail research and development. And then my next co-op term will be with Northern Contamination with the Public Service and Procurement section of the Government of Canada. So if we move to the next slide, I'll just explain a little bit more about some of these things that I'm doing. So this first picture here is just of a soil mechanics lab. This is one of my favorite classes as well. It's from Civil Engineering 381. And in this particular lab, we were testing the porosity of soil. So there is lots of hands-on experience and tons of opportunities to interact with classmates, teaching assistants, profs, as well as like some of the engineering materials that you'll actually be using in your degree, and as well as in your career. The next one there is this City of Edmonton. So those are some of the friends that I made at the City of Edmonton. Again, where I worked with the mobility section, I designed some of the bike parking section of the new zoning bylaws. So this is really cool. I get to say it made an impact, made a lot of friends as well from the U of A and beyond, as you can see there. Did some materials testing, which is that upper picture there. So I tried to find the yield strength of different plastics under different conditions by putting them into a testing machine. So I got to work in a real engineering lab and got lots of experience in engineering testing and applied some knowledge from the materials courses. And then the last photo there is the view from my office at Transport Canada. And it's a really great view. It's a really great job as well. So I think that's all about me. Thank you again for having me, Rachel, and I'll pass it off to the next person.
Thank you, Alex. I loved your introduction. That photo of you and your friends with the background is like of Edmonton is like my favorite. The bridge is popping. You guys all look great. So yeah, love that you included that. Now I'm going to pass it off to Tendai to chat about their experience at the engineering program.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Tendai. I am in my 4th year of my chemical engineering degree. So I'll be graduating soon because I'm more in the traditional program. So I'm originally from Harare, Zimbabwe, which is like a 34-hour flight away from here. The reason I chose the University of Alberta was because of the opportunities that are available for students from all over the world. Like there's no discrimination here. And I chose the traditional program because I wanted to focus a little bit more on research. You can do research on co-op, but I thought maybe if I give myself a few summers to go home and do a little bit of research while I'm in school, it would have been like, a little bit of a balance. So my favorite class was CHE 343, which is Chemical Engineering Thermodynamics. And it's just such a beautiful course. You learn about how fluids move and how some phenomenons happen. Like I just recently from that class, I learned that you're not supposed to microwave water because it will just go into like a supercritical state and it could just vaporize out of nowhere. I wouldn't have known that. And usually if you don't have a kettle, you just think I'll just pop the water in the microwave and it'll do its thing, but apparently not. I'm also a University of Alberta ambassador along with Alex and Rachel formerly. I absolutely love this program. It has taught me to be a better speaker, a better person, and more impressionable person. I absolutely loved it. It's a bit of a break from the engineering side of things. I've made a lot of friends through that program. There might be a few pictures on the next slide, but we'll see that when we get there. But yeah, the ambassador program has been transformational for me. It's been such a great opportunity and I've made so many connections. And if you ever come to the University of Alberta, I highly recommend you do it. And there's very few engineers in there. I think Alex and I were the only engineers last year. So the numbers need to go up. We need some people getting in there. So yeah, other than that, I am an undergraduate research assistant and I work under one of my professors from 2nd year. I just reached out to him because I thought his research was pretty cool. His name is Dr. Dominic Sauvageur. And my goal in this whole undergraduate research thing is I am trying to look at these things called isoprenoids. And they are actually produced by bacteria and they have the potential to be used as a fuel. So what I'm doing is trying to test how we can extract these in a more efficient and sustainable way. And we're using these things called switchable solvents that can change their properties so that they could extract the isoprenoids. It's pretty fun, cool stuff. And the research experience has really taken me through. It's been a learning curve. I've learned that nothing in this life is linear. And I've learned to exercise patience and be a more, attention to detail oriented person. It's just been an amazing time. And then on top of that, I am also a U Alberta student blogger. So coming into a different country altogether, I came in 2019. And I was alone by myself, had to find my way from the airport to school. And from there, I just had to figure it all out. And getting through that, I had to learn a lot of things. And I felt like I didn't really have, at the time, I didn't have anyone to communicate how I could best do this. So I thought if I didn't have that person, maybe I could be that person to other people. So I write about my move, I write about where I'm from, I write about my interests or whatever pops in my head. Honestly, it's a free world. It's been a great experience, and I've also learned how to sharpen my writing skills. So we could go on to the next slide. Yeah, so like I said, I am in the Yo Alberta Ambassador Program. If you can see at the top left, oh, right, sorry, I get confused with the two sides sometimes. The top right is me and my friend Caleb after giving a nice little, having a recruitment little shift that we had. And then and in the middle there, we have me at the open house, which was an absolutely amazing day. I also love to travel, so I incorporated some pictures from a boat cruise that I had. So the sunset on the one side is a sunset cruise I went to at this place called Victoria Falls back at home. And then that's just a crocodile on in Botswana that I found pretty cool. We got to get up and close and personal with the crocodile, which is pretty great. It was like a water safari. So instead of doing safari on land, you kind of get on this really low boat and you go on the river. It's really, I don't think it's safe, but I did it anyway because we were really close to the water. Like I could literally put my hand in it. But anyway, that's besides the point. Another thing about me, I love to play piano. I've been playing since I was 5. You know, with my schedule, it's been a little bit hard to keep up with playing the piano, but I absolutely love it. And I love weightlifting. So you'll find me in the Hanson Fitness Center here and there sometimes. I pull a lot of muscles, so you might find me limping as well. And I am a self-proclaimed professional volleyball player. I actually twisted my ankle 2 weeks ago, and I've never actually successfully hit the ball over the net without hurting myself, but I still call myself a panda at heart. But yeah, it was such a pleasure to meet you guys, and feel free to ask me any questions. Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Thank you, Tendai. I love how you talk. Your storytelling is like impeccable. I also love that you're a blogger. I love reading that student blog. I think I'll put a link in the chat because it's like so wholesome, so student-centered, and like such a fresh perspective. So yeah, thank you for introducing yourself. And then definitely, I don't know what that saying is, like last but not least, is that the same? Is Jaden. So I'll let Jaden introduce themselves and take it away as our final student.
Awesome, thank you. And speaking of pulled muscles, I actually pulled a back muscle like the other day, exercising my calves. Don't know how I did it. Pretty impressed. Hi everyone, I'm Jaden. I'm a 4th year electrical engineering student, currently enrolled in the co-op program. So co-op program is generally 5 years, so I have 1 year left. Very excited. We can just go on to the next slide. So I was born and raised in Edmonton, and that's largely part of the reason why I went to the University of Alberta. It's close. Well, I live south of Anthony Henday, so it's not particularly close, but don't have to move cities. It's pretty nice, and it's very affordable university. My favorite class so far, I gotta say, has probably been EC 312. I've spent a lot of hours in a row in lab rooms, but it was probably my most rewarding class. EC 312 or embedded systems is like the electronic devices that perform various tasks. A good example would be that we got to build a little buzzer that was able to kind of make a song. I had to learn music theory for that lab, so that was probably the most difficult part of that, but it's a really cool device. I wanted to show a little clip of it, but I couldn't find any that was a good clip, and I've long disassembled it. I have this little thing right here. I made from that class little device for my girlfriend that when you press this button, it would display a pseudo random message. It broke. I have no idea why it broke. It was working, and then the next day I didn't even touch it and it just stopped. So I've been meaning to try and fix that, but that's a problem for not today. We can go to the next slide. Just some of the extracurricular stuff I do. Probably a thing that I've been working on most recently is the student affairs director for the incubator space. So one of the cool initiatives the Faculty of Engineering is doing in these next few years is opening up an incubator space. For those who are unaware, incubator space is kind of a like a thinking zone for entrepreneurial interests. So if you have an idea, you're like, I think this could be a success, maybe not, but something you're interested in, you go to the space, you'll have experts there who know how to take this idea of yours and make it an actual product or reality, or sending you to the right people and down the right path. It's something that I think is really, really cool initiative done by the Faculty of Engineering, and it is opening up in this September. So hopefully if any of you do go into engineering, you'll be able to come check it out and come visit me in there. But my pride and joy probably within university has been as president of the Electrical Engineering Club for the past few years. Electrical Engineering Club is the group that represents the just over 550 electrical engineering students within the Faculty of Engineering, do various social and professional development events, including industry talks, barbecues. We participate in like Gear Week, which Polina mentioned, specifically Battle of the Bands. EE Club won that, just want to put that out there. And yeah, we do various initiatives to students. Some of the things that I've been personally involved with is offering $1,500 annually in just various scholarships to students. That's something I'm pretty proud of. And something I was working on right before this presentation is a giant $25,000 competition for electrical engineering students that we've been hosting just this Saturday, which is really exciting. Beyond that, I am also a Students' Union counselor for engineering, as well as an engineering representative on the General Faculties Council. Polina mentioned that, I won't go into that. And something just a little bit fun, I was never involved with any organized sports growing up, and I decided, since I'm currently on a co-op term, to go try and learn how to play ice hockey. And it is a lot harder than it genuinely looks. I don't think I'm getting drafted into the NHL anytime soon. And if I was, I certainly wouldn't be the first round pick. But it's been pretty fun. I've been looking at also doing ball hockey and badminton as well, just to give me something to do. So we can go to the next slide. As for co-op experience, my first co-op was as a lab kit coordinator with the electrical and computer engineering department. This is where I organized the logistics and various systems used to distribute and plan the few multi-thousands of EC lab kits to students. If anyone does go into any discipline, it's a good chance you'll be taking at least one EC course where you'll have a lab kit. I worked on those. Hopefully the other people here thought it was a good experience. At least hopefully the kit was nice, but that's something that's been really fun. My next two co-ops were with different subsidiaries of ATCO. ATCO is a utility company located primarily in Alberta. My first one was with ATCO Electric, where I did a lot of data analytics with electricity metering and kind of quality assurance on the side. The second one, and the one that I'm currently working at, is ATCO Natural Gas, where I'm working on cathodic protection. Cathodic protection is basically the second line of defense on a pipeline, besides coating that prevents rusting. So I'm working on two projects right now. One of them is in the mountains. One of them is just near Calgary, and doing some digs out there. And it's pretty cool. I have a few more projects coming my way, just waiting on team to send them over. And that's me.
Thank you, Jaden. I love the device you mentioned for your partner. I think that's so fun. Like something like from the heart, but also using your incredible engineering skills. I'm not an engineer, so hearing about engineering in different co-ops is like fascinating to me. But now I'm going to chat a little bit about applying to the U of A if you haven't applied yet, and then we'll start with the student panel. And a few questions are already kind of popping into there. So you can apply in your grade 11 year, or if you finished grade 12 and haven't applied, you can apply as well. But if you are still in grade 11, please don't apply, wait till your grade 12 year, just to clarify. And so you can head to uab.ca/apply. Our applications open October 1st of every year and close on March 1st. So if you are towards the end of your grade 12 year and you have not yet applied to the University of Alberta, the deadline across all faculties is March 1st. So that's coming up pretty fast on us here. You can complete the application before all your grades are in. So yeah, you're in second semester of grade 12, so we won't have maybe Chem 12. That's okay. You let us know you're in the process of getting Chem 12, and when you're done it, you'll send us that final grade. So if you weren't sure, these are out of order. If you weren't sure the classes that you would need, these are the 5 Alberta grade 12 subjects. And to see the equivalents in other provinces, you can visit uab.ca/programs and click on the type of curriculum you're taking, whether it's international, Saskatchewan, that kind of thing. But in Alberta, we're looking for English 30-1, Chem 30, Math 31, Physics 30, and Mathematics 30-1. And our uab.ca/averages website there gives you a good sense of the grades you would need amongst those 5 classes to be a competitive applicant to engineering. So for engineering, it is mid to high 80s right now as a 3-year historical competitive average. So something to keep in mind if you're thinking about applying to the U of A Faculty of Engineering. And then we thank you so much for attending this event, but if you want to attend other events as well, you can head to uab.ca/recruitment events, and that's where you can see all of our events that are engineering specific, but also campus tours, student panels. Di and Alex do quite a few more like general U of A presentations that you can be a part of as well. If you're interested in receiving advising with the team of NAS recruiters, uab.ca/advising is where you can book a virtual session with us. Please note that they are in the Alberta time zone, as when international folks or folks book from out of province, they might not note that and then miss the advising session. If you want to see our virtual view book, you can check out uab.ca/start. And if you want to email us any questions at all about applying to engineering, applying to the U of A, scholarships, residence, anything at all, you can email us at enginfo@ualberta.ca. I'm just going to toss that in the chat as well. We usually reply within 3 to 5 business days, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, it depends on the time of year. But you can imagine right now we're a little bit swamped. And then of course, if you haven't visited the website, the engineering website, the U of A, uab.ca/engineering is where you can check that out. And they are revamping it a little bit, fun fact. So it's gonna look a little different in the coming months. So new branding is coming our way. All right, now we're gonna move into the student panel. So I'm gonna stop sharing my slides and I will be facilitating the questions that pop through, as well as we have a few other engineering questions we prepped. So I'm going to start with the very first question. I think this is geared towards co-op folks in the environmental engineering stream. So I think Polina and Alex, you guys can say it together, take your turn. But the question is from Erin. Do you travel a lot as an environmental engineer? Maybe we'll have Polina start. Yeah,
Sorry.
No,
Kinda
go.
jumped in there. I was excited. So you definitely can. I think the really cool thing with an environmental engineering degree is that you can so cater it to what you want to see in your future. So my co-op coming up, I'm going to be working for EngGlobe as a geotechnical field intern. And in my job, I'm going to be traveling across southern Alberta to wind farms and different dam locations and doing some cool geotechnical stuff for them. But if that is something you don't want to do and you would prefer to work in an office, that is like also in your realm of possibilities.
Yeah, so I could just add on with a little bit of a personal story. So yeah, I started out at in Edmonton, at the city of Edmonton, and then I've worked in Edmonton, although this co-op term, I can work from anywhere in the country, which is pretty cool. I decided to stay in Edmonton just for ease of ease of access. And then my next co-op term, I will be heading up to Yellowknife to work at a mine, an old mine there called the Giant Mine that's going under some remediation. So yeah, that's a great opportunity to travel. As Polina mentioned, there are other opportunities. There was a job I interviewed for where you could travel around Alberta doing some geotech engineering, and another one where you can travel either through Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta to do some environmental engineering, or up to the territories as well. So lots of options with the co-op degree.
Thank you. And then for Jaden and Tendai, like I think we can also answer this question for your experiences. Like, have you looked at jobs outside of Alberta or internationally, and what would those look like? Either, feel free to answer. Tendai, I saw you nodding. I'll let Tendai go first.
Well, I'm actually going to be working at PepsiCo after I graduate, and that'll be in Lethbridge. I'm not too sure how much traveling I'll be able to do, but I know that within like the PepsiCo industry, like within the company, sorry, you can actually choose where exactly it is that you want to work, or what what's it called? What category you want to work under? What is it? Department. Okay, so yeah, department you want to work under. So if you feel you're a more hands-on person and you want to be more in the field, you're allowed to do that. And then if you want to be more sciencey, like behind your desk, doing whatever you want to do, they could accommodate you as well. So honestly, it's like Polina said, it's just based on how you want to do whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah.
Congratulations, Tendai, on your
Oh.
post-grad job offer. Amazing. Okay. And then, yeah, I'll let Jaden speak to if you've explored co-ops outside of Alberta or ones where you're traveling.
Yeah, part of my current co-op is going to be doing a lot of on-field stuff. So I'll be going around all of the province, going to various dig sites and working on it. As for actually looking outside, I have done a lot of that. A lot of my interest, a lot of the industry within Canada, within embedded systems and electronic and microcontroller design, is largely found in both the like Toronto area as well as Vancouver. So there's a lot of jobs out there. I know a lot of different colleagues of mine who were able to kind of get some co-ops out there. One of them was working at Microchip, which is pretty exciting out in Vancouver.
That's awesome. A move might be in your future. Very exciting. Not that Evan is not exciting, but a different type of exciting. I love that. Okay, thank you folks for answering. The next question we have is from Connor, and they're asking how easy it is to get into the co-op program. So kind of that discipline selection process, the ranking the disciplines, and then with the co-op and traditional routes in that. So if any of our co-op folks want to speak to it, go ahead.
I definitely could. So during your first year, kind of near the, I guess it's whenever you really want, but you'll have to go through this process where you have to rank what programs you're most interested in to least interested in. So you have to put at least 10 options and you have all of them. So you go through all the EC options, the civil and environmental options, mechanical, and you rank the ones that you're most interested in. And that also considers like the co-op program, traditional program, which is non-co-op, the different specialization programs within these disciplines and everything. And at the end of the year, they look at all the students and they generally, the process is the higher GPA, the higher generally you get your program. As for co-op versus traditional, it all depends on the program. Some disciplines have a, let's say 0.3 GPA higher on average acceptance compared to other programs, which may actually have equal, but it all varies year by year. It's very hard to tell what GPA you necessarily need to get into any program. I've seen some disciplines fluctuate as much as a 1.0 year after year, which is incredible. And largely, it's also just averages. It's not a huge worry on like what necessarily a GPA is to actually get into any of these programs, and we're sort of focused on what interests you. That's what I would recommend.
I think that's great feedback. And also just for kind of like contextual knowledge, the GPAs for the disciplines are never released. So we really encourage folks to do the best they can and then apply to what interests them and see where they land, to not kind of aim for a specific GPA. Since they're not released, kind of won't know what they are. Does any other student want to comment on kind of co-op in that process? If not, I'm seeing no nods. I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay. This one's kind of a funny one. I think some people are reading Reddit, and which is kind of humorous. But does the engineering building actually smell bad? Let's do some myth busting. Does anyone want to comment on this?
I will comment. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it could be, but I think also there's stereotypes on what kind of engineering students cause the smell. I will say, not to stir the pot, first day of my semester this year, I walked into class, didn't realize my class changed, and was like, this room does not smell like environmental engineering students, and it did not. So I'm not going to say which discipline it was, not to throw any shade. But yeah, I will say some of the older buildings, like the mechanical engineering building, that building is pretty old. That one kind of smells old. So yeah.
I would concur. Becky does smell a little dusty on the edges, but cleaning staff does clean it. I just want to bring that in. They're doing their best. And of course, like another thing about TLC, which is kind of one of the main engineering buildings, is there's a food court, and it is a main building folks walk through. So I walk through it on the way between like my work and my car, and it always smells like food or like leftover food because it's like 4 p.m. So there is that intermingled as well. But does anyone else want to comment? Or Alex, go ahead.
Sure. I think something that's really cool is like you get to like, I don't know, kind of like, it sounds weird, but it is part of the experience. So, for example, in the mechanical engineering building, you'll get a lot of like oil and stuff like that you are using, or in the chemical engineering building, it could be some sort of chemical that you're using. So I think it's all part of the experience. I don't necessarily think that it's like a bad thing ever, but I do think it is kind of cool. I would say I agree with Rachel in that the cleaning staff are very thorough. I've never seen any like huge accidents or anything, like huge things happen. Even if there was like, say, a sandwich dropped on the ground, it will get cleaned up very, very soon. But I think it is part of the engineering experience, especially in like the Mechie shop, where yeah, you're gonna get like oil, you're gonna get machine cells, you're gonna get all that sort of thing. And I think it's really cool.
I love the answer, Alex. That's true. I never thought of the materials folks are using and how that translates to the space smelling. That was a very insightful answer. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to scroll down a little bit to answer some that might kind of be more like pressing. One question being, is it possible to change your discipline after first year? I'm not sure if anyone on this team has done it, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's very much possible. My story is like a little bit similar, different. But I was after first year, I was actually in Y2 Qual 2, so I wasn't put into a discipline. I didn't in first year, my grade wasn't competitive enough to qualify for a discipline. So I actually did it's called a second general year pretty much. So you take if you fail any classes, you would retake those classes. I fortunately didn't fail any classes, and I just took courses that most disciplines take. It works out easier for some disciplines than others. For me, that ended up adding on another year to my degree, which kind of sucks, but it's okay. I made it in the end. So after doing that second qualifying year, my grade was significantly better, and then I could compete again. And then I got my top choice, which is wonderful. But I do have friends who have jumped between disciplines, and it is very possible. The way it works out is that it's all based on the capacity that year has of students. So for example, if you have a really competitive GPA, like a really high GPA, and you decide you want to go into a very popular discipline, the higher your GPA is, the easier it's going to be for you to switch to that, because it is based on a grade basis. If you're coming from like a really popular discipline, for example, you're in electrical and you want to jump into environmental, which is typically less popular, then that transition would be easier for you. But it's very possible. And that's something people don't remember, is that it's not the end of the world if you decide your discipline is not for you.
I love that answer. And you're allowed to change your mind too. If you ended up thinking like electrical was for you and you decided to be a chemical engineer, that's okay. And from what I understand, most of the disciplines are quite interdisciplinary as well, where even if you come out with a civil environmental engineering degree and you want to work in another area, you're able to, depending on kind of those electives you took. So yeah, thank you, Polina. That was awesome. I have another question, and I think this is kind of more for Tendai. So Farhat is asking, how easy is it to assimilate into the campus as an international student? They recently attended an event hosted by International U Alberta Recruiter, one of my colleagues, and they thought it was perfect, but they want to be really realistic about the expectations of coming to the U of A. I'll let you take it away, Tendai.
Yeah. Okay. I'll always say that, I mean, home is always best. Like, you're always gonna feel like this is where I grew up. This is what I'm used to. So being an international student is actually a leap of faith. And it's a learning curve, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of support from your community. I will say the University of Alberta, like, I came into the U of A and I lived at Lista residence. And the good thing about Lista is that, like, you're surrounded by so many different students from so many different places. They offer so many services. So I didn't have to cook. I didn't have to worry about groceries in the first few months of me trying to settle in. And I also had like people all around me who were kind of doing the same classes, so we could interact and like They could help me figure out how I do this. There were certain things I didn't understand, the culture shock, like they would explain concepts that I just didn't understand. Like, I don't know, they called it a washroom. So when people were saying a washroom, I was like, what's the washroom? Just simple things like that, that I had like people surrounding me to like kind of help explain that stuff to me. And then on top of that, you're gonna have a few like low days where you miss home. Being homesick is normal, but I am more of a fan of embracing that homesickness and realizing that, you know, I have to kind of prioritize, you know, checking in with people from back home, or even making plans to go home. Home becomes more fun when you're not there all the time. So actually, when I go home, I have an absolutely amazing time. And yeah, I mean, integrating into the system, you kind of have to do a little bit of research on what facilities are best for you. We have the International Students Association here. On top of that, we have the Telecenter. So that's where you go for all international student help. They can answer all of your questions. There's also like different counseling services. Say if you're caught in a rut or you're not feeling okay, we have a lot of help here on campus. And I've used quite a few of these facilities to help me when I'm feeling a little bit low. But I honestly think as an international student, I've been graced with the opportunity to grow. And a lot of my friends don't understand how I did it. But I did it and I'm still doing it right now. I'm not perfect yet, but it's been a great learning curve. And I honestly encourage people to just take that leap of faith. Like there's nothing better than learning how to truly be independent and learning how to live with yourself. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how I feel about the whole shebang.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
your answer was so vulnerable. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I had an international seminar on engineering, and I was like, we have an international student coming. I was like, you should come to this like student story. So hopefully that student came from that and you're giving them what they need. Okay, next, pretty more statistical data question from Connor. How many people were in your first year classes? Anyone feeling?
A lot. They're fairly large classes, I think is the best way to go about it. They generally hover anywhere from say 100 to 200 people in each lecture. Being said though, that does sound like a large number, but in practice, you'll notice by the semester as it goes on, the classes do just to get generally smaller and smaller, not because people are like dropping out, but because some people learn in different ways. Some people don't find the same usage from lectures, and that's perfectly normal. But there are quite a few people in each lecture. The smallest in your first year will be English 199, which is around 30, I want to say. Last when I took it in first year, it's probably still around there.
I think it's
Just to
exactly.
add-
Oh,
sorry.
Go Tinda, you go.
I was gonna say, just to add to that, it's not just like it's not one professor against 200 students. It's one professor and the professor's TAs against 200 students. So you kind of get like a little mini professor that comes with the professor package.
I love the idea of TAs as mini professors. So I'm gonna refer to them when I talk to folks. Okay, anything else anyone wants to add for first year classes? No, we're sitting good. Okay, next is, I think, a pretty common question most folks want to know. Would love to know if there's anything you learned after a few months or years into engineering that you wished you knew when you started. Looking for some tips or things to expect as a first year student.
If I can jump right in, I think pay attention to your weaknesses. And if you're studying, and you should be receiving results, and for some reason you are not receiving results, get help. Like, don't sit there alone and deal with it on your own. Honestly, like, talk to an academic advisor. We have these on campus. Go talk to the engineering academic advisors. That's like another separate group. For me, like as I mentioned, I ended up in Y2 Qual 2 because my grade was not competitive. I learned through academic advising that I had severe test anxiety. So when I went into an exam, I could not write the exam despite knowing the information. And after having that consultation, I got a diagnosis for generalized anxiety, which gave me accommodations for exams. So now when I write exams, I have a time modifier. And ever since adopting that, my grades have just skyrocketed. And that was necessary for me to get to that place. And everyone is different. And if it wasn't for me reaching out for help, I would never have gotten there.
Thank you, Paulina. That was lovely and so like honest. So we appreciate you. Jaden, go ahead.
One of the pieces of advice that I like to give to everyone, especially people going into first year, is the most important skill I think for a lot of people is just simply time management. There are going to be a lot of some of your colleagues that the best way to describe them is that they're just naturally very smart. They don't have to put as much time into things as you are. I was not one of these people. I'd put a lot of time into my studies, into focusing on things. But the best way to do that is to know how to manage your time effectively. Kind of tying on what Paulina said, one of my colleagues, one sub question in a math assignment, he had spent 9 hours straight working on it. And that's a good example of things that you try not to avoid. And going into first year, it's going to be a large gap from high school. And you may not necessarily have like the time management skills as you're not necessarily used to all that extra workload, but it's something to definitely focus on. Getting every extra point isn't necessarily worth it if it costs you an extra 3 hours that you could be spending on an entire other assignment.
That's a great point. Like time management. Yeah, 100%. Tendai, go ahead.
Yeah, so I learned that in engineering, the best way for me was to become as vulnerable as I possibly can. So I had to put my ego aside and realize that, like what Polina said, asking for help is crucial. But now I want to talk about it more from the perspective of how you interact with your peers. So I don't know what it is about engineers. We have like a God complex where we think we're heroes. And I don't know, it's some people get like a little bit big-headed, and kind of humbling yourself and putting yourself in a position to say I don't know could go a long way. I've made a lot of friends through just asking someone in class, like physically in class, have you done the assignment and do you know how to do question 2? This is a complete stranger. I've never met you, I've never spoken to you before. And I don't know how to do this, and I'm being open and honest with you, even though I don't know who you are. So just being able to open yourself up to everyone and be supportive of everyone. And another thing is assignments are really, really good. Like if you struggle through your assignment, you're probably going to know what to do in the exam. And that was such, like, I didn't know that in my first year. I was like, oh, this is 0.25% of my grade. It's not going to do anything. And this week I'm just not feeling up to it. And I wouldn't do it. And that specific assignment covered a specific topic that comes in the exam. I don't know how to do it because I didn't get that practice before. So that repetitive learning, just putting yourself in a situation where you're seeing it physically, applying what you're learning in class to the physical world, or you're actually doing like exams and testing yourself outside of the class, that's really, really crucial. And I think people should prioritize that. So vulnerability and really prioritizing, solidifying that learning. Yeah.
I appreciate how you mentioned the assignments, because that's a question we had emailed to us that I wanted to get to, but how do the assignments like tie into the learning? And I think you answered it so well, is that they're like preparing you for the test and ultimately preparing you for your career. But there is quite a few assignments. I've heard colloquially, I think they're just like coming at you from all directions. But I'll let Alex comment on for this question if you would like to. General advice for first year folks.
Sure, just really quickly, I think what everyone said, I think especially like the time management and just keeping on top of things, like I do not recommend, waiting to the last minute procrastinating. I know that's a big learning curve and it can be difficult, but university does go faster than high school. So just, yeah, if you have an assignment, start doing it, is my biggest piece of advice.
Great advice. We love time management. We're all learning as we go, getting better every day, getting stronger, more vulnerable. I love it. Okay, let's see if we have one that we can answer from everyone. Ooh, okay. This one is, what are some of the biggest myths you understood or realized on your journey through engineering? More myth busting.
Do you want me to go, Polina, or you first?
You go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
One of the biggest ones that I've heard a lot since first year is everything in Alberta is just oil and gas. That simply just isn't true. There are, I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of jobs, there's a lot of like industry revolving around oil and gas in some capacity. I'm working in a co-op that actually is pipelines for natural gas right now. And I'm sure a few of us have probably in some way worked with utilities in that capacity, but there are a lot more things. For example, from the electrical and computer engineering side of things, which I kind of represent here, there's a huge tech market within Edmonton and Calgary. Doesn't get as much highlight because it's obviously not as big as say like Silicon Valley or Vancouver's. They're just larger cities, but there are a lot of different avenues for industry to say in Alberta. People often think it's just oil and gas, and that's just simply not true. There are a lot of other things. They just may not be as big as oil and gas, and that's okay. That's normal. You just have to find them.
Sorry, I was just like spaced out a little. So I think one of the biggest myths I've heard is that if you had good study habits in high school, that's going to be good enough for you to do well in university, because you're going to change as a person. You're becoming an adult. You're going to be thrusted into this brand new world with all of these other peoples. These study habits that you formed in high school could not possibly not work for you. You might not have realized in high school that those study habits were actually really bad study habits, and you're going to have to learn how to learn in a different way.
I think that's like a fact. That's a good one. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, another real quick myth is if you don't get the discipline that you want, that does not mean that you're stuck in that discipline. Like there are so many things. I have like a cousin who went into civil engineering, is now working in mechanical. There are so many things. So honestly, you can do whatever you want with an engineering degree with some caveats, but generally if you want enough and you just can't make it into that discipline, do not stress, because you can make your degree yours and your career yours as well.
And Dad, do you have a myth to bust?
Yeah, so in my first year, I was actually told that if I don't apply for the co-op program, I will not make it as an international student in Canada. And quite frankly, co-op is cool. It's great. It's awesome. And it's opened so many different windows for so many different people. But if you have other things that you want to prioritize, or you don't get into the co-op program, whatever it may be, it's not the end of the world. And I personally, I applied for co-op in my first year, and I didn't have the GPA to get into co-op the first year, and that was totally fine. It's just what you do after that that kind of matters. And you actually find that, students who are in co-op or who are not in co-op, their grades could be similar, better, worse, however it may be. It's all dependent on the individual. And as someone who's actually gotten a job after for after school, and having been told that I wouldn't get one after my first year, it goes to show that even though I am an international student and I didn't get into the co-op program in my first year, I still managed to get an after degree, like kind of, job. And then also adding on to what Jaden said, I work in food and beverage. It's PepsiCo. So I know oil and gas is great, but if you want, you could go into cosmetics. I know someone who's in the mining industry, diamond mining industry, and they're a chemical engineer. Life is what you make it, I guess. So, it's based on what you're interested in.
It's all about those transferable skills, like things you really build from the ground up that you're able to apply in multiple situations, is how I view it from my science degree. But yeah, okay, let's end on a fun one. We have 3 minutes left just for the sake of time. I'm hoping to end on time. But I'm gonna finish the last question. Okay. What are some of the nicest or easiest ways to maintain a balanced life? I guess, and what does that look like for you? As you're all towards kind of the end of your engineering degrees, you've had all this experience and time to build these skills. Anyone want to go first?
Sure, I can go. I just have to pop out a bit early. So yeah, I would say, I mean, there's so many ways. I think what Polina said is get help when you can, because it just makes your studying so much more efficient. If you are slaving over a question for hours on end, it's just not efficient. And so I think if you really want to have that work-life balance, I think it is a good idea to just start planning, to get help when you need it, just to make your studying as sort of efficient as possible. Try out some different studying tips or techniques, and yeah, and then use the rest of the time for you, because as much as you need to work, you also need to rest. Like, oh my gosh, that is another thing that I realized that is going to make your studying so much more efficient, is if you take breaks and if you rest. So it's kind of like you almost have to have a balanced life. No pressure, but you have to have a balanced life in order to do well.
Amazing. Anyone else wants to comment?
I could go. I think another thing that you could do to completely get that balance in this engineering lifestyle is having the right friends. My friends are hard workers and they're a really good influence on me, but they also love to have a good time. So we always try to get our work done as much as possible. And it's collaborative, right? So we work together on things. We help each other with questions that we don't understand to prevent like wasting time as well. So I love to go out and have a good time with my friends, but I also like to get my stuff done on time as best as I possibly can. And it's mainly because of the influence that I have around me. So if you surround yourself with good people, you will be influenced into doing good things.
I love that.
I think what Tendai said really like hits the mark. It's all based on the people you're surrounding yourself with. This is like one of my favorite topics to like talk about. I think one of the best strategies, in my opinion, and this goes for like doesn't go for everyone, take it with a grain of salt, is to treat your schooling as a 9 to 5. So when you're in school, like be serious, like you're on campus, get your work done, like pick the right friends to do schoolwork with, that all of you are serious. And then in doing that, you could very easily, especially in your upper years, this might be harder to implement in your first year. You can take time in your evenings to do something that you like. So I picked up climbing with my friends this past year. So that's something we've been doing a lot. And like I mentioned earlier, snowboarding, ice climbing, all those different things. It is very possible to have a healthy work-life balance, but that is something you have to work on. You have to set boundaries for yourself. You have to set the hobbies, and just be consistent.
Another thing that I'd just like to add, I think a mindset that's really important going into first year. And I can safely say for most students, after your first set of midterms, you'll very quickly realize this, that it's not about striving to be the best. It's not about striving to have the perfect GPA. It's striving to find what's good enough for you. It's a lot of work to try and push yourself to its very limit, but why aim for 95, 100% when 80% is going to be good enough? And the sad reality is the more time you put into studying, the generally less and less reward you're going to be getting out of it. Be realistic. You don't want to spend the next 8 months just purely focused on that. It's not going to be a very fun and enjoyable time. And remember that you're only in university for a few years. Try and get the best out of it. Do some extracurriculars. There's tons of different project groups and other groups on campus. Make friends. Don't focus exclusively on studies. It's obviously important, but try and live a life. It's not, when you tell people 30 years down the line that all you did was just this, do you want to be that person? I don't think most people do.
I love that. I also love the advice that if you can get something done just as well with 80% of the effort or 80% of the time, to do that and to be really efficient with your time. I learned that throughout my degree. Okay, just some wrap-up comments. So if you want to chat with current students, I believe Tendai and Alex are both on this platform, Unibuddy. You can check out this link here in the chat to everyone. And so you can DM them, it's a text chat, and let them know if you have other questions, just in case there's a few lingering ones we haven't got to. For another event that's coming up that's specifically engineering focused, it's next Thursday at 5 p.m. It's called Engineering for Impact. We have 5 different folks coming, a professor, student groups, co-op engineering students who are going to speak to environmental projects they're doing in engineering. Highly recommend checking out that event at uab.ca/recruitment events. And there is a question in the chat I just want to pose to the folks here. Is there an email we can use to reach out to anyone on the panel after this ends? If you feel comfortable, you can toss your email in the chat to everyone. But if you don't feel comfortable, then they have the chat function through Unibuddy. So totally up to folks. I'll give it a second. Awesome. I'll let everyone save their emails if they want to reach out to our lovely students. Also, thank you to our students. It's reading week, if the folks on the call don't know, which means it's a week off school right now. It's a mental health break, the whole week, no classes. And these 3 lovely students, including Alex who left, volunteered their time on this week. So thank you all for being saints. Thank you for being here and providing all the knowledge to our incoming students. I'm going to end the call now. If you have questions, you can email any of the students, or if they're more kind of like administrative, I'm just going to put eng info in the chat again. And our team can answer those as well. All right. I hope you have the best night, folks. Have a good dinner.